All right, let's continue with chapter 16, focusing now on local advertising. Salespeople who sell local advertising are primarily proactive, and they typically have the embodiment of missionary selling. They typically call on local businesses that tend to purchase advertising for themselves, or they will call on local advertising agencies. Now, local agencies versus national agencies, a lot of things are similar, but also kind of different in that you're dealing with a smaller agency that you may be able to develop more intimate relationships with those that run the agency on behalf of their clients. So there is a little bit of a different nuance here with local agencies as opposed to regional and national ones. The first thing that local salespeople need to do in planning an advertising campaign for their prospect is to define a business model based on the 5 marketing decisions from chapter 15. So determining what type of business they are, whether they sell to other businesses or they sell to consumers, and do they sell to consumers directly or via retail outlets? Are they selling a tangible or an intangible product? Are they selling something that's scalable or not scalable? Where are they in the business life cycle? Are they in the developing stage, or have they gotten to the point where they're in their maturity, or are they on their decline? And also thinking about the difference of where they are in terms of cost leadership or differentiation, or perhaps a focus with one or the other in mind. Now let's look at the 10 steps of advertising. First, understand applicable laws, regulations, and restrictions that apply to a business or a product. Sometimes some businesses have certain things they have to disclose whenever they do advertising. This is especially true of legal, of certain types of financial services. Sometimes when it comes to various other disclosures and conflicts of interest and things like that, certain types of construction and trade sometimes have to disclose their licensures and insurances. So you want to make sure that you're up on what is absolutely required from a business whenever they advertise. Second, state a value proposition by answering the question, if I'm your ideal customer, why should I do business with you instead of your competitors? So, make that compelling argument as to why you should go with this particular brand or organization and not someone else. And basically, when you come up with that, you have the basis for the unique selling proposition, the USP. You want to create that in such a way that it's aligned with the value proposition that clearly separates a local business from its competitors. What the different unique benefits to consumers are that no other business can offer, or at least hasn't offered through advertising. Making that business unique and different, and creating some sort of an appeal for that particular brand. Step 4, define the ideal customer or a target audience. It's easier to visualize and create messaging for a single person than for an aggregation of people, which is what a target audience is. So when we're talking about the ideal customer here in this instance, yes, we're taking a look at who our target audience is, our target demographic, but more specifically, if we can explain it in terms of one particular person, maybe even to the point of giving that person a name in terms of who that person is, and we're describing a bit about that person. Obviously it personalizes the target audience, and we can think of and focus on that particular person when it comes to putting together the advertising campaign. And that way we make the campaign much more personal and hopefully that much more impactful. Fifth, define the desired results of the advertising. And you want to do this based on the 5 A's of marketing that we've talked about in the past. Awareness, appeal, getting the consumer to make the ask to learn more. Ultimately, to make the act to get that information or to make that purchase, and then be satisfied with that purchase to the point that they start to advocate for you to others. Sixth, select message objectives, whether it's to inform, to persuade, to remind, or to reinforce. And you want to select the one that's going to best accomplish the desired results. Step 7, define message appeal, whether you're appealing to the rational or to the emotional. And that you want to do that so that it best accomplishes the message objectives. When we're doing it rationally, rational tends to work best with business to business and with business to consumer direct advertising. Emotional tends to work better with business to consumer retail advertising. What we mean here is that they're going to a retail store of some kind. They're dealing with a middleman. So you want to create an emotional appeal in those cases. That tends to work a little better in those situations. 8th, define media objectives. Now, the different objectives you may have are going to be one of these 3. First one, reach. Reach is the number of different people that are exposed at least once to an advertising message during a certain time period. Products that have high awareness, announcing something new, should go for as much reach as possible. So if the brand or organization is already in the minds of people, they already know who they are, the awareness has been made, then to tell them about something new, you don't have to worry as much about telling them a message over and over and over. You just need to hit as many people as you can with that information because the establishment is already there. It's just telling them about this new thing. TV, Facebook, national magazines, these are good media in order to use effective reach. Frequency is the number of times within a specific time period that an average person is exposed to an advertising message. Generally, we tend to say that you need to have at least 3 impressions on someone a week in order for a consumer to recognize who you are and what you're about. If it's a new product, it can take an average weekly frequency of 7. So here, you can use radio. That's an effective form of media for frequency. Also, Instagram and Facebook. Just continually provide them with that presence of who you are. Get yourself in front of the consumer as much as you possibly can. And then engagement is a spectrum of consumer advertising activities and experiences that will have a positive impact on the brand. So we're doing this in terms of the cognitive or the mental, emotional, and also the physical, the logistical. The more engaged people are with an ad, the more likely they're going to recall the advertising messaging. So in that sort of way, you're looking at kind of a combination of reach and frequency here, but you're also trying to put that spin on who you are as a brand or an organization in terms of getting that positive image out there. Step 9, craft a media strategy, and it's going to be one of these. Dominance. This is where we try to take a particular medium and we just blitz it, get the information out as much as we can, perhaps to the point of shutting out our competition, or perhaps just putting ourselves several times in front of people within a certain day part or a certain program or a certain section of the newspaper where you're just all over the place. Your presence can't be avoided within that medium and within that particular section or day part or whatever. Consistency is an effective strategy for a local business to build an equity position in its community, and it means advertising consistently throughout the year because the business never knows, when someone is in the market for what they sell. So you're consistently putting yourself out there, daytime, nighttime, weekdays, weekends, throughout various months, throughout various seasons, that your presence is always out there. And this is especially effective if you're in the business of providing a product or service that realistically could be used and consumed year-round. Flighting means running advertising schedules occasionally, and it's going to be at times when businesses are heavy. You can think about retail stores doing blitzes the weeks before Christmas or back to school, running ads for the month before back to school starts. Springtime is a great time for home improvement or gardening, things like that. Springtime also good to get yourself out there for people thinking about getting married or planning summer vacations. So those sort of brands and organizations are going to have heavier concentrations of advertising during the times that they would expect for consumers to come and patronize their businesses, and maybe not so much during their off seasons. And then recency refers to the fact that the most effective advertising is the last advertising that a consumer sees or hears before making a purchase. Kind of that idea that the last thing in someone's mind is the thing that they're going to remember and it's going to be impactful for them. So there's different ways to do that. One would be to try to have your advertising be the last ad within a spot block on radio or television, or perhaps to wait to do your advertising until the last possible minute for someone to make a decision on a particular thing. This is the last week before a certain holiday or whatever the case may be, to create that sense of urgency and get people to buy. A multi-channel approach is going to be necessary to reach consumers. So you want to have a mix of media that achieves a desired level of reach and frequency and engagement. There's some details within your textbook that you can take a look at, but generally, in order to effectively reach an audience, because our audiences are fragmented and they're all over different types of media, consuming different things, you're going to want to do things in such a way that you're able to maximize as much as possible all of these different tactics, and simply not just put all of your eggs in one basket, if you will. Then 10th, you want to craft an advertising budget. Hopefully it's a yearly budget that you will achieve the message and media objectives that a company has set. Some of the considerations in putting a budget together would be the stage in the business's life cycle, the brand market share and customer base that they have, how much competition do they have, how much ad clutter is there out there. Are they going to have more frequency in order to kind of break through the noise? Also, their share of voice, or SOV. How strong is their message? How much of a thought leader are they considered within their industry? And then product substitutability. Product substitutability is what I'm trying to say. Product substitutability. How easy is it for one product to be replaced by another? Is it more of a commodity, if you will? A good example of this would be Coke versus Pepsi. Coke might want to get their name out there more and more if they're trying to put their brand in the minds of consumers as opposed to Pepsi. So if Pepsi's doing a lot of advertising, Coke is going to want to do that much more. Some methods of budgeting. There's the affordable method. Simply put, how much can you afford to buy? How much of a budget do you have to be able to work with, and you can realistically buy the advertising and make it effective for you. Second, the percentage of sales method. The various industries have average ad to sales ratios that most businesses use as a general guideline for the percentage of sales that they allocate to advertising. In other words, they will know that in order for them to achieve X amount of revenue, then they need to invest this amount of advertising in order for it to be beneficial and profitable. To spend more or less could actually hurt their overall bottom line. The competitive parity method is when an advertiser chooses to use a level of spending on advertising that is similar to the advertising spending level being used by major competitors. So using Coke versus Pepsi again as an example, if you know that Pepsi is spending $100,000 on advertising, then Coke may want to spend at least that much in order to continue to be competitive and relevant. And then the objective and task method, setting a budget by defining specific objectives, identifying the tasks that need to be performed in order to achieve those objectives, and then estimating the costs of performing them. So looking at how you're going to meet the goals that you have and realistically thinking about how much it's going to take in order for you to achieve that goal. And that's going to do it for the advertising chapter. We'll talk about some of these things and your thoughts, maybe create some other insights for us to share when we get together and talk about these things in class. Don't forget to turn your work in.